This School of Hard Knocks fight is an amateur bout in the 125-pound weight class and is brought to you by BAM Marketing Solutions. And now, let's meet the fighters. Fighting out of Victoria, British Columbia, please welcome Jean-Marc Degroot.
So Jean-Marc Degroot comes down to the cage. They call him the Flying Tomato out at Submissions 101 Gym and Island MMA out of Victoria. Made the trip out here to get in the cage against Keegan Oliver, just 19 years old and already a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu under 10th Planet. And anybody who knows Jiu-Jitsu knows 10th Planet, and Eddie Bravo, no slouch when it comes to Jiu-Jitsu. So we may expect some interesting things when this goes to the ground. Said he's very comfortable on the ground, 1-0 as an amateur, and says he's comfortable standing up, but would prefer to take the fight to the ground if he gets his chance.
And I think Keegan Oliver probably feels the same way. And so what we're going to see here is a showdown, and the amateur rules are actually going to favor this in this case. This is one of the cases we're going to have two amateur fighters with very solid ground games. So we'll actually hopefully see a very exciting, very technical ground fight here that you wouldn't typically see in other amateur fights.
Yeah, both these guys look like they're ready to go, especially if it goes to the ground. I know Keegan Oliver also with his wrestling background here, Rebels Wrestling in Calgary, a solid club there. And Keegan Oliver, or Jean-Marc Degroot said that one of the reasons he came to Calgary was because it's not easy to find a guy at 125. He said that when he's training, he has to train against guys that are 150, 160. He's got no choice. So because he's a smaller guy used to fighting bigger guys, he finds that it's almost odd when he gets into the cage against a guy his own size, because the speed advantage that he normally enjoys is negated a little when fighting a guy his own size.
Yeah, you look at Jean-Marc Degroot, you know, if you didn't know he was 125 pounds or 123 as he came into the weigh-in, you know, you even have a point of perspective. You look at that guy, you say that's a well-built man.
Yeah.
He's put a lot of muscle onto a 123-pound frame, and he's certainly ready for this contest physically.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be 123 of the right pounds.
That's correct. Making use of every single one.
Yes.
Fighting out of Calgary, Alberta, welcome, Keegan Oliver!
Now you see accompanying Keegan Oliver to the cage, directly behind him was former Hard Knocks fighter James Haddad. James is 3-1, he was undefeated in the Hard Knocks cage. He'll make the move to the MFC on October 7th, so stepping up his game to take on a new class of opponent. You also see, of course, head instructor Josh Russell, you know, getting his fighter ready to go in the fight. Keegan Oliver is one of those guys who, you can pass him on the street in his glasses, you may not think this guy is an MMA fighter. But he's been training for a long time. He's been lovingly referred to as McLovin around the gym. But in the jiu-jitsu circuit in Alberta, he's been called McRampage because he's had a nasty habit of picking people up and slamming them in contravention of the rules of the local jiu-jitsu circuit. So he's a powerful little kid at 125, and just like his opponent, he is regularly training with some big men and some skilled opponents in the cage. And you'll also see in this corner former national team wrestling member Jesse Arnett, who has helped him get ready for this fight. So a lot of really skilled guys in each discipline in Keegan Oliver's corner, as well as some well-rounded fighters in the form of Papa and Kumse. Andrew Buckland will be on the main event tonight, another former training partner of Keegan Oliver.
Well, and we've seen these guys come in, again, itching to fight. I got to admit, this is the first time I've ever seen Keegan with his hat off. I'd never seen him without it before.
official fighter introductions. In the Blind Monk Urban Pub blue corner, he's 19 years old, stands 5 feet 5 inches tall. He weighed in at 123 pounds, fighting out of Submissions 101 in Victoria. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter Jean-Marc the Flying Tomato Degroot.
And in the Two Amigos and Company red corner, he's 22 years old. He stands 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighed in at 124 pounds. Fighting out of Gracie, Baja in Calgary, please welcome Hard Knocks fighter Keegan Oliver.
This bout will be contested under amateur rules. The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks action is Vern Gorman.
Okay, gentlemen, you're both aware of the rules. Remember to listen to my commands at all times. Remember to protect yourself at all times. Fight clean, fight hard, touch them up if you like, come out on my command.
You'll notice Keegan Oliver there sporting a very large scar on his abdomen. That's a product of a battle with cancer that he won at the age of 3 years old.
Keegan Oliver out of the red corner with the black trunks, gold trim. 10th Planet trunks for Jean-Marc Degroot. Both of them trade strikes, and early takedown gets stuffed. And again, a little bit more speed than we saw out of the last fight.
And there's a good lead left. Keegan Oliver shrugging off like it doesn't hurt. That usually means it did. Another takedown attempt stuffed.
Couple knees and punches thrown by Degroot. Both fighters still continuing to feel each other out in the early going. A slip there by Oliver as he tried to go for another shoot and ends up securing the takedown now against the cage.
And what you're seeing already is that attempt to put on that patented Eddie Bravo rubber guard. Now he's going to an omoplata. Keegan Oliver rolling to get out.
Nice escape there from Keegan Oliver, but still in a bad position here.
You got that left foot go-go plotted up around the arm and over the throat. Keegan Oliver working out of it very smartly, but he gets mounted.
And again, this is where the amateur rules somewhat hinder the fighters, because at this point in a pro fight, you'd see the fighters starting that ground and pound to the head of a downed opponent. Now you can ground and pound an opponent from here, but it's all to the body. No shots to the head allowed under the rules. So this does effectively at this point for these two become a wrestling jiu-jitsu match.
Yeah, you see Keegan Oliver's work back up from the mount. He may be risking his back up here. Oh, now he's back. He may roll out and lose his back. You're probably better off in these rules set staying in the mounted position until you know you can get a clean escape out. But good on Keegan Oliver for not taking advantage of the rules and trying to progress the fight.
Jean-Marc Degroot all over Keegan Oliver here, down low, looking for an opening as these two jiu-jitsu-based fighters go head-to-head. And again, it's one of those opportunities where you're looking to push when your opponent pulls, and a big knee landed there, and now he postures up and gets out, and Keegan Oliver returns back to his feet.
Keegan Oliver close on that kick and lands it glancing on the shoulder.
Degroot landing a couple more punches as he goes forward.
As you know, both fighters seeming pretty comfortable on their feet and technique looking pretty good, but Degroot getting the better of it so far, and he's landed a few powerful hooks. It'll be interesting to see how that changes as the fight moves on.
Degroot falling after a kick and then takes a head kick.
And you know, that kick's high. I'm not sure if it landed on the head, but I think the kick's been close enough to Degroot's head to merit warning Oliver to keep those kicks down and aim them at the body.
Well, I think it may have glanced off the shoulder and caught a piece of Degroot's face, which again, in the amateur rules, not allowed. And at the moment...
And you know, we saw a fight before where there was a head strike violation, immediate point deduction. In that case, that's a clear attack at the head that's prohibited. Points deducted right away.
Now what we're seeing in this case, I believe the referee explaining to both fighters, no point deduction taken at that point because the block was made. The kick didn't strike him in the head, but it did kind of kick his own hand into his face, so as a result, no point deducted.
And in any case, it's a strike threatened at the head. That's illegal, and you shouldn't be able to use an illegal strike threat to get someone to lower their defense because the move should be illegal. You know, that round definitely in favor. Got the better of the striking, had the mounted position, had Oliver's back, threatened the win. So definitely his favor. What you're seeing, unfortunately, from Oliver's striking is he's throwing a lot of kicks. He's not leaning back on the way he should. He'll get more power out of it. He'll also keep himself at a striking range. He's very upright on those kicks, and that allows that counter right hand, counter lead hook that Degroot is landing to come in. You see an example of that right there on the replay.
The kick didn't strike him in the head, but it did kind of kick his own hand into his face.
And bouncing back and forth on the other side of the cage. Keegan Oliver taking the stool, taking the breather. Break down the psychology of that for us.
You know, in my book, you know, I was quoting guys, I try to prevent them sitting on the stool if they can at all, because I think it keeps you in the fight, it keeps your blood flowing, and you don't have that feeling when you stand up off the stool, your legs feel tired. You're already standing, you're ready to go. So I like it better, but some guys, if it calms you down, lets you listen to your coach better, I say go for it. Mentally, if I'm Degroot, I'm thinking I'm the fitter guy. I don't need to sit down. So it's a mental boost that way, too.
So again, Keegan Oliver in the black trunks and gold trim, black and silver for Degroot coming out of the blue corner with the blue tape and red hair.
You can't bet against a redhead, can you, Mr. Ballantyne?
No, I have a hard time cheering against a ginger.
For those of you not aware, I'm standing behind, or sitting beside one of the Ballantyne brothers, both of whom prominently redheaded, and both very good-looking men, I might add.
Well, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Keegan Oliver and Degroot trading punches up against the cage and breaking out. Keegan getting a little fancy with his arm there. Not sure if his shoulder was a little out.
I think what you're seeing from Keegan Oliver a little bit, you saw him shrug off a punch that he took clean in the first round. He's feeling like he's acting like a fighter should in his head. Oh, now in trouble, finishing a single leg and possibly being a triangle threat if Degroot can get that right leg out and past the knee. So you'll see Keegan Oliver try and shrug his right shoulder in there, maybe prevent that triangle. Degroot really just stalling here until he can get that leg out on the right side.
And in the meantime, Oliver holding that other foot down. And again, with no punches to the head of a downed opponent, can't soften him up like you would see with the pros. You will likely see with the pros later tonight a couple soft punches to the head. Then you're forced to protect them, which allows that other leg to come free. So again, the amateur rules may be causing a bit of trouble for Jean-Marc Degroot as he looks.
What you saw there is a very subtle, very experienced move. Keegan Oliver passed his right knee over Degroot's foot. That's going to allow him to start passing that butterfly hook here and take the triangle off. So Keegan Oliver advancing slowly, but advancing methodically in a very technical way. You see Degroot trying to sneak it back in. Oliver trying to work that right knee over, and there it is again.
And trying to work into side control.
And that'll work into side control, and it really makes that top leg fairly ineffective. So he's going to try and pass that leg, and that's the battle here to try and win this round. He'll probably be passing that knee. And now you see a Kimura being threatened. And Keegan Oliver can switch that to an arm bar if he wants to. He's got to step over, and he's back to full guard. When you attempt that Kimura and you don't have guard control from the bottom, you're at risk of Oliver turning over, if you're not in the right position on the bottom, into an arm bar. And you saw actually Matt Hughes fall to George St. Pierre in their second fight in that way.
So again, utilizing the rubber guard at this point.
You know, the rubber guard gets a lot of hype, but it really isn't that dynamic a position. It allows you to threaten the go-go plata that he's now working on. That's a very difficult move to finish. It's very defensive, but that go-go plata and the omoplata will allow you to work on a Kimura on the right-hand side there. He's got the arm bent, but it was what he did use to roll Oliver over in the first round.
And Keegan Oliver giving his opponent a brief spanking before the round comes to an end. So 2 rounds in the books. We'll be heading to a third and deciding round here. A closer round to call in that round between these two fighters.
You know, you look at that round and how do you score it? Keegan Oliver was successful with the takedown, so to a certain extent he controls the position of the fight. But on their feet before that, Degroot's still getting the better of the striking and in a fairly clear way. But these rounds are short, so it's hard when you spend the majority of the round on the bottom. But, I look at that on the bottom. Who got a chance to threaten on the bottom? I say it's Degroot, and even though Keegan Oliver is on top for most of that round, he never actually passed that half butterfly guard. He did get threatened with another omoplata at the end of the round, and he got the worst of the striking. In my opinion, Keegan Oliver is down 2 rounds.
So he's going to have to come out and finish this fight if he's going to be the winner on Beamer's scorecard. Again, you're watching the School of Hard Knocks 14 as presented by the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship. My name is Ryan Valentine alongside Beamer Comfort. You're watching Jean-Marc Degroot, the Flying Tomato, out of Victoria Submissions 101 Gym and Island MMA in association with 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu as he takes on Keegan Oliver, Calgary kid fighting with Gracie Baja, and it's been a good fight so far. Should continue here as we get started in the 3rd round. Oliver tries to come out quickly and secures a nice takedown there, drives it through, slams his opponent into the ground, and immediately finds himself in the guard.
And that's a more impactful takedown. You might actually get a chance to score some points in that, but Keegan Oliver is going to have to find a solution to this unorthodox ground game with the omoplata attempts, the rubber guard, which is very non-traditional jiu-jitsu, and it is a creation of that Eddie Bravo 10th Planet system. And you don't Keegan Oliver doesn't have a lot of training partners who are going to work that system. The Baja system, more conservative, more traditional style of jiu-jitsu, very effective, but I'm not sure that Keegan Oliver has had a lot of chances to work with a training partner who runs this kind of ground game system, and I think he's been a little stifled by the unorthodox game that Degroot's putting through on the ground, and unless he finds a solution and is able to pass to a point where he can actually threaten and actually finish the submission, since we think he's down 2 rounds, at least on my scorecard, Keegan Oliver is going to lose this fight, so he's got to come up with something big, and hopefully Josh Russell had a solution for him in that round.
And again, like you mentioned, some solid defense being put on by Jean-Marc Degroot. However, and referee going to stand him up now after seeing a very effective defense being put on by Degroot. Keegan Oliver unable to get anything done from that dominant position, and up they stand. Oliver shot for the takedown again and got kneed in the chest for his trouble. Tries to return the favor.
You know, we'll say this so far, both these fighters very skilled in all disciplines so far. Degroot's takedown defense has been more than competent. Keegan Oliver has been great on the takedowns, catching kicks like that and capitalizing. Both fighters, again, Keegan Oliver passing that half butterfly guard, trying to get past that knee. So they've been competent on the ground, more than competent on the ground, competent on their feet. This is a very skilled amateur bout and a very impressive debut for Keegan Oliver, regardless of the outcome. So good to see this kind of skill level displayed in the amateur ranks.
Well, and they say, you know, it sounds trite, but they say that when you're an amateur fighter, your goal is to learn more than anything else, rather than get in there and win every fight, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're 0-100 as an amateur, as long as you're 1-0 as a pro, that's all that really counts.
Absolutely. Both these guys are getting the advantage of 3 rounds of cage time, proving they have the skills and the win to fight. And I think this is a great start for both these fighters. Second fight for Degroot, and we're in the last 10 seconds of Keegan Oliver's amateur debut.
And both of them trying to shoot for a takedown. It looked as though Degroot secured the better of that, but he does end up on the bottom again. That is the end of the fight. Keegan Oliver puts his hands up, as fighters will do. Degroot does the same as they head towards their corner. Going to take a moment here while the judges add up their scorecards. But if we're following Beamer's scorecard, I believe it'll be a decision victory for Jean-Marc Degroot.
Yeah, and again, I'm a wrestler. I have a prejudice towards a takedown, but in my opinion, and all the judges that I speak to,
HSC Integrated, the official ambulance for all School of Hard Knocks Calgary events. for helping us keep all of our Hard Knocks fighters safe in their competitions.
You know, when I speak to judges at events all over Canada, and they tell me if you get a takedown, that's great, but it better do damage if you want to score on the cards, or you better do something with it on the ground, and that means start putting on some pressure on the ground and pound or threatening submissions, and at the very least, you got to pass guard. And Keegan Oliver didn't do that with his takedowns, so to me, he loses all 3 rounds of that fight. He was the more aggressive fighter for sure, but he just did not have an answer for that rubber guard system on the ground.
They're just totaling the judges' scorecards, so we'll see whether or not the professionals agree with you. They get, of course, paid to do it, and so we'll see. But at the moment, it looks as though Jean-Marc Degroot will have added a second win to his amateur career, and Keegan Oliver will have to go back to the drawing board a little bit, although he may have run into what may have been a perfect opponent for him. In that it tested his jiu-jitsu, and he wasn't running into somebody who was coming in with 6 months experience, and he ran into a true test rather than an easy victory.
And my scorecard would not reflect how close this fight was. I mean, I would give all 3 rounds to Degroot, but all 3 rounds given very marginally. So while it might be a clean sweep on my scorecard, we're talking about, you know, very subtle differences in the ground game. A few strikes here and there for Degroot, particularly in the first round, and you know, a 30-27 decision does not reflect how close this was.
By BAM Marketing Solutions, the winner by split decision in the red corner, Keegan Oliver.
A split decision victory for Keegan Oliver. And you can hear the reaction of the crowd unhappy with
Keegan,
the decision.
You told me when we were talking at the weigh-in that you were training down in Vegas. How did your training help you win tonight?
It was really good, you know. He came out with some hard overhands. I was surprised. And he hit me a couple times, but, you know, I trained hard and everything down in Vegas was good, too, you know. Vanderlei's gym is a lot of people, but, you know, I got to thank my #1 team, you know. Gracie Baja, Rebel Wrestling Club. We had the toughest guys in the country, you know.
Absolutely. And so what's next for your MMA career?
Whatever. Fight as many times as I can on Hard Knocks. I know they haven't shown medicine out. I'd love to fight there.
Let's hear it again for your winner, Keegan Oliver.
You know, Degroot walking behind us there, clearly not in agreement with that decision. But again, we're talking about a subjective scoring system, the margin of victory being very, very tight in each one of those rounds. You know, in my opinion, no chance Oliver wins that first round. It's got to go to Degroot. And you look at the second 2 rounds, the judges are maybe giving Keegan Oliver those rounds because he got the takedown, so he did control where the fight was going to be.
And he secured the on-top position, the dominant position, even though he was, in my mind, relatively ineffective from that position and saw more threats to him than he provided. Again, that dominant position does weigh heavy in the minds of some judges.
And, you know, and credit him for being effective, for making technical attempts to pass the guard. And we talked about the 10th Planet system being a very creative but can sometimes appear to be a stalling and a very defensive system. You'll see here Degroot secures this position, and he basically just checks to make sure he's holding him still. So he isn't threatening there yet. And, you know, this position looks like he might be threatening a triangle. He's not. He's past that leg. So, you know, Oliver was threatened. Maybe not enough for the judges to think that the control had transferred to the bottom fighter in that case. But that's another drawback of these amateur rules. You know, maybe they're giving Keegan Oliver the benefit of the doubt that had this been a professional fight, he has an opportunity to strike from that position and not requiring him to be as active to be the controlling fighter there.
Well, and let's not, I don't want to take anything away from Keegan Oliver either, because he did put in a solid effort. He used his wrestling background to secure those takedowns, was very effective. I would say, punch for punch in the stand-up, threw a couple kicks, caught the kicks, secured the takedowns. So a good performance from Keegan Oliver as well, and Gracie Baja improves their record here at the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship with James Haddad, like you mentioned. Also, Chris Maddock has fought here several times, always on the winning end. So Keegan Oliver just does what Gracie Baja fighters have come to expect when they walk into the Hard Knocks cage.